All right. We are live, Bill. Yes, I know you're shocked that we're here after over a year of waiting and anticipating of our retrospective for Moon Knight, the 1980 series. Thank you very much for, as always, including me in this retrospective. This is your baby initially, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit over the years that we've done this. How are you doing, my
Likewise.
friend?
Yep, always fun to do, and we've misbehaved over this last year plus. So hopefully we can get in 2 or 3 retrospectives within a rolling year.
Yeah.
So that's the hope going
Yeah,
forward.
let's hope. About every 3 months or so, I think is a good. I know because I know you have a lot of videos that you do. I have my videos that I do, but I really do enjoy deep diving like we do on these series that I've read, sometimes decades back,
Right.
and I have vague memories of. But then, once we get into the retrospective, I reread and I re-enjoy, and it's almost like a nostalgic trip back. But then I enjoy it even today, and I really think that just sort of tells how timeless some of these story arcs are and these characters are.
Absolutely. As many great comics as there were in the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Comic Age, to me, and perhaps it's because I kind of grew up in that, I feel like the Bronze Age is really where a lot of writers, particularly with Marvel, kind of step their game up. And there's some really strong storylines, titles in the Bronze Age in particular.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Silver Age. There are some exceptions. I mean, I think late Silver Age, there are some really good, really forward-looking, progressive story arcs, etc. But I think you're right. I think the Bronze Age, the relaxing of the code and the more emphasis on the exposition and plot lines and subplots really brought a more three-dimensional approach to the characters, and that's attractive to us, right? Because we it's escapism, but we want it to be within the realm of possibilities, right?
Right.
So I think that combination, and this one here with Doug Monk, as you know, we the Master of Kung Fu that he did, one of my very favorite runs in comic history. The same writer there is here, and so I have history with him. Also, he did the Deathlock series and Astonishing Tales, amongst many different.
Both of which we've covered in previous retrospectives.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, we're here with Moon Knight, the 1980 series, and we're going to get started in a sec. Let's see who's over here in the chat. We have our buddy Darth Ken. Welcome, Ken. Great to see you
Ken.
here. Yep, we are Moon Knight nuts. Absolutely. We are, I'd say Moonies, but I think there might have a
they might be different. Yeah,
there's
a flower involved. Yeah,
there might be a pejorative connotation to that, so we'll leave that out. Our buddy Russ, how
What's
you doing,
up, Russ?
Good to see you here. I hope you were doing well. I know you were going through your Superman collection, and I was busy when you were doing that today, but I will catch up because I think that your Superman collection is aces, my friend. You're saying, hey, Ken. And we have Aaron, our buddy, Psychotronic Squirt Gun, all the way from Washington State. Welcome, buddy. All right, so let me just give you a little warning, and just in case it's your first time watching this retrospective, because we haven't done this in a while, we are going to be doing a deep dive. There will be spoilers galore here. All right. Sure. So if you, for whatever reason, are wanting to read this series without knowing details about it, go back, read the series, and then come back and watch this retrospective at a later date. Because Bill and I are going to go to town on this. Okay. We're going to give you story elements. We're going to give you character references all over the place. And we're going to give you our thoughts after every so often. All right. I think a few more people. Amateur Player, welcome, buddy. Great to see you here.
And we are doing issues 1 through 20. So there are 38, I think, issues in this series. So it does leave about half of it for you to explore afterward. And the writing, for the most part, is strong throughout the series. So.
Yeah, I think toward the end, some other writers and artists take over, but you're right.
Yeah.
Doug Monk and Bill Sienkiewicz are the ones that do the journeyman's work on here. Really, this was their baby. I mean, when you're talking about 20 issues, I think it was it bi-monthly for a while? No, it was monthly. Okay.
Monthly.
After a while, it went direct only, but that's
Correct.
another issue to talk about. All right, so let me make myself a little bigger here, Bill, while I'm on, and I will do the same for you, my friend, because I will be showing the covers to the issues here. And the interesting thing about this series, besides the fact that it's written by Monk and Sienkiewicz, Sienkiewicz at this point was not the stylized Sienkiewicz that maybe you remember from New Mutants and his later work in the 80s. Although it is moody, dark, and and really appropriate for this kind of series, I thought. Because in fact, he mentions in this issue that Mark Spector doesn't like the light. That's sort of a precursor to what's going to happen later. So this particular issue is really two different story pieces here. You have an origin story, and then which leads into the second part of this issue. And if you haven't read his first appearances in Werewolf by Night, this really expounds a lot on that. He's hired by the committee to kill the werewolf and all that. Right. And a lot of that is explained later. But in this issue, it opens up. He's a mercenary, part of a group of really heartless and just sanguine mercenaries that are eliminating rebels somewhere in North Africa, I do believe. And their leader
eliminating a lot of people, including rebels. Yes.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's
indiscriminate to a certain extent.
That's the pretext. Right? Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's right. And Mark Spector and Frenchie, which we'll talk about later, are part of his mercenary army.
Jean-Paul Duchamp.
Jean-Paul Duchamp, otherwise known as Bushman. In fact, he's gone so far.
No, that's Frenchie.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's Frenchie. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Bushman's Raoul Bushman. Yeah.
Raoul Bushman. Yeah. And he goes so far as to paint a skull on his mask, and like he has these steel teeth. Yeah. And
tattooed, I believe.
Tattooed, right. Not paint. You're a tattooed, so it's permanent, right? Well, unless you laser it off or whatever. And they're eliminating, the rebels, but and then somewhere in there, Mark Spector, which is Moon Knight, one of his alter egos, we'll get into the other ones later, says, hey, listen, I'm not feeling too good about butchering, people like this. That's not what I signed up for. So he's kind of getting, he's having second thoughts about, teaming up or being hired by this guy. And later Frenchie comes over and says, hey, I found this stuff, these secret papers, which essentially state that, what they're doing is not what they were assigned to do. Right. And he's like, well, yeah, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of this unit, because this is just wrong. It kind of gets a little bit quick. I mean, that part, that kind of change of heart is a little bit quick. But you have to understand that they only have half an issue or so. Yep. To do that. All right. So beyond that, Bushman finds out that there's a golden dagger. There's a tomb with treasure nearby.
Hey, Jacob.
So, go ahead.
What's
Bill.
up, Don?
Hey, Donnie, welcome, buddy. And Jacob, great to see you here. All right. And so he sends Mark Spector, okay, to go get to infiltrate the house of the archaeologist and his daughter, which his daughter is Marlene, but that's
for later.
Yeah, that's getting ahead of myself. But during all that, they're actually just Bushman and his people are just bombing the whole area, right? Because they want to eliminate any kind of opposition in this area. But the Dr. Arlon or whatever, what was his last name?
Yeah, that's his last name. All wrong.
Arlon, right?
Yeah, Peter.
Peter Arlon. He sees what's going on, and he sees Bushman out there. He grabs the golden dagger, which is part of the dig,
The treasure,
because
right?
he was like, I've been working on this for 5 years. I'm just not going to let this go, right? So he sees Bushman out there, and he's right by the doorway. He's got the dagger. He's about to plunge it into his back, but Mark Spector kind of reacts jerkingly and saves him. Let me get rid of Jacob here. Not get rid of Jacob, but lower you.
You can't get rid of Jacob, Roger. That's not
no,
nice.
absolutely. I would never want to do that. And in doing so, gives Bushman the opportunity to kill Dr. Elaine. Yeah, bites him with the steel teeth. Yeah. And Marlene sees that. Well, doesn't see this, but when Bushman has the dagger and says, "Well, thank you for saving me," or whatever, he says, "Go in there and get rid of whoever's in the house," and that's where Marlene is. But he doesn't do that. He tells her to just get out of there, get the Jeep, and get out.
Yep.
And but Bushman sees that.
She argues with him though, and he says, "Oh yeah, yes, I killed your father, and I'll kill you too. Now get out of here." He's trying to get her out of there, but he leaves her with that impression that he killed her father.
Yeah, correct. That was the only way that he could get her out of there quick enough, because they were just arguing there. Even though he didn't do it, it was Bushman that killed him. Bushman finds out that he sees the Jeep go away. He was like, "Hey, you let her get away, but since you saved me, I'll cut you a break. But next time," all right. But right after that, he sees Mark Spector sees a lineup of civilians, and Bushman's men just mow him down, and that was just a bridge too far for Spector. He goes after Bushman, starts attacking him, but unfortunately, Bushman is this huge, strong guy, and just wails on him and knocks him unconscious. He tells his men to take him out into the desert and just leave him 50 miles from any kind of civilization to die. Again, he hates the sun, so this was the punishment that he wanted. He didn't want to kill him. He wanted to really make him suffer. And Mark Spector wakes up, and he's just in a daze. He's just walking, crawling, sun beating down. He's just dehydrated, and happens to stumble upon the dig site where Marlene and her father found the tomb of Khonshu, right? And he drops in there. They drag him in there, and Marlene, or one of the assistants listens to his heartbeat, and he says, "There's no heartbeat. He's dead."
Right.
Okay. And so for several minutes, Marlene is like wondering, "Hey, should I be happy about this? Like a man killed, even though he killed my father. I mean, he didn't, but she thinks he did, right?" And then in the background is the statue of Khonshu, the god of the moon.
It's in the tomb of Seti, right? I think
of Seti, right? Yeah, right. And then all of a sudden, she's like talking, reconsidering what her thoughts are, and Mark Spector just sits up. And when he sits up, first thing he sees is the statue of Khonshu.
Right.
And he gets this notion, maybe this is where it's kind of ambiguous, right? He gets this notion that he's possessed by the soul of Khonshu, and that he's alive because Khonshu wants him to be his avenger.
Right?
Yeah. But she's like not. She's like, what happened here? She's not really buying it at this point. So he rips off the cloak from the statue of Khonshu. He gets these two daggers, and he goes after the Bushman. Remember, he's just crawled in from the desert, dead. So how he's able to do this is a mystery. So he goes over to the town where the Bushmen are set up, and his men are set up.
Yeah, Salima, I think, right, in Sudan.
Right, in Sudan, correct. And he just takes them out. He throws a dagger. They have like this skull pendant or the skull tattoo on their chest, so they're easier to identify. Yeah. And he takes out a bunch of them. Probably not a smart move on their move, but anyway, he takes out a bunch of them. Okay. And then he goes to this, after all the commotion, right? He finds out that in an alley there's the Bushman guy, and he confronts him, and he's like, "Spector, how did you get here?" Right. He's like totally shocked that he's even alive. And Marlene is also around. She's followed him over there because, again, she's now reconsidering wanting him dead, right?
Right.
And while he's about to confront the Bushman, Marlene starts making noise because Frenchie accosts her.
Right.
Right.
She screams. Right.
She screams, and that allows the Bushman to get away. And and unfortunately at that point, she starts to talk to him, and he's like, you've already defeated his army. Don't go after him. You could get killed. Imagine she went from wanting him dead to now wanting to protect him. Right. And Frenchie was like, well, let's get out of here as well. He wants to get out of the situation because the whole area is still in turmoil, right? And that's where the first part ends. And Marlene hugs him, and then he just kind of like faints, like just exhaustion. So that sets up that origin sets up the next part. And the next part, we find out that he now has 4 identities. He's Jake Loxley, the cab driver, because he can get to the street level.
Yeah.
He is Stephen Grant, a billionaire who used his mercenary winnings in the stock market and became filthy rich. And he's also Mark Spector, the mercenary guy. And of course, Moon Knight, the Avenger of Khonshu.
Yep.
And there's many reasons why this is important, but
isn't he tape recording this? That's the setting.
Yes,
right?
that was all. That was also he could recollect what was happening. Correct.
Yep.
That's correct. And then you find the tape recorder, and he has that pendant that he found, that somebody found for him, and they took off one of Bushman's men, so he knows that Bushman is now around.
He's in New York.
Yeah, New York.
Yeah.
He's on Long Island, but yeah, he's in New York. So he says, Frenchie, fire up the moon copter. Really cool looking helicopter, by the way.
Yeah.
And he becomes Jake Loxley. He goes out and he starts pumping Crowley for information. Now, Crowley is an important character. He's a very loquacious, highly intelligent, big, huge, voluminous lexicon guy. But he's a bum, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got flies, going around
all the time. And in Gina's diner, which is, I would think she wouldn't want that, but that's right. Another thing.
And Gina is where he likes to eat as Jake Loxley, and he has 2 sons, which will become important in the next. Crowley gives him information saying, there's this club where the guys with this pendant hang out. So he's like, okay,
it's the Death's Head medallion.
Medallion, that's right. The pendant medallion, whatever.
And it was found during a heroin bust.
That was. Thank you for that. That's right. I forgot about that part. So he goes over to that club and starts asking, hey, where's Bushman? Oh, we don't know who he is. Well, he doesn't buy it because he sees the pendants. He just waylays this whole gang, essentially. It just absolutely karate chops them, truncheons, crescent darts. They didn't stand a chance against him. And eventually goes up to the office of the club, and he sees that dagger, the same one that the Dr. Arlong was going to kill Bushman with, which he took with him.
Right. And
indeed, Bushman is over there ambushing him. He's hiding in a corner there. But what, unbeknownst to him, Marlene, being concerned about him, goes and follows him over to that club. And, Bushman and he are, again, fighting. Bushman starts firing shots at him. He misses. But Marlene shows up, and Bushman wings her with a bullet. And that sets Moon Knight off, starts waymailing on Bushman. But again, he gets too emotional, and he overcompensates. Bushman gets the advantage. He's about to bite him, and he puts a truncheon in his mouth. And he bites the truncheon in half. That's how powerful his jaw is. Yeah. But that allows him enough leverage to punch Bushman, and he starts just pounding him. And he's really just going to beat him to death. And Marlene says, don't do that.
Right.
Stop, because I don't want you to be like him.
Right.
And he's about that far from doing it, but he stops. And he leaves the Bushman for the cops. He leaves the crescent dart as his calling card.
Right.
And the last shot is great because there's the moon and it silhouettes over the bushman as the police detective is coming in.
Yeah.
Really, really cool little tidbit there at the end.
Yeah, I don't know that you could ask for a whole lot better first issue in the series. It feels like, because they packed a whole lot into issue one, particularly into the first few issues. Not as much later on, and later on they would have backup stories because the primary stories were a little bit shorter. But in the first few issues, particularly in issue one, there's a lot of meat on the bone with those.
Yeah, very dense, a lot to take in, a lot of characters that are introduced, and a lot of plot lines that are set up for later on, including the four personalities, which there are reasons Marlene and he have conversations about it constantly.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a source of friction after a while. But I thought it was brilliant the way that was woven in so early. I think that, who is it? You had writers in later series. I can't remember. One of the English writers really took it to an extreme with personality disorder complex.
Yeah.
But it had its origins here. Its genesis, that's for sure.
Hey, Scotty. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that here it's just they're sort of giving you little tidbits, little teasers about things that will be conflicts later on. Hey, Aggressively, how you doing, buddy? Hey, Damien, welcome. And there's Bill saying hi to everybody, that friendly sort that he is.
That I am.
And Kenneth Bird is here as well. All right, let's go to issue 2, Bill. And
let
me put you on the forefront here, my friend.
All right, same creators, right? Sienkiewicz with the art and cover. Doug Mensch did the writing. So issue 2, a man asks a friend of Crawley's, a compatriot, if you will, a bum, a person of the street, a tramp, as the kids used to say back in the 30s and 40s. If he was in Trenton 20 years ago, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he calls him a liar, and he kills him with a sickle. And so let me just backtrack real quickly. Even with issue 1, and if you read like the premiere issues and the backups, particularly in the Incredible Hulk, Rampaging Hulk magazine, it's very gritty. It's a very gritty, in your face, dark at times series. So if I don't know if some people, what's going on, Naman? If some people maybe didn't anticipate that, but it'll smack you in the mouth with how grim it can be in some parts. Really strong writing and really great stories, but that's something to be aware of.
Absolutely.
So Moon Knight tries. So there are some slow evolutions of Moon Knight over the course of the series, and one of them is his truncheon can now turn into nunchucks, right? And so this is new in this series, and he is. Let me see if I remember. He's looking for, this guy is dubbed the Skid Row slasher, this assailant, this murderer. And he's looking, he goes to Gina's Diner, which is a hangout as Lockley. It's one of the hangouts as a cabbie driver. That's how he kind of gets the word on the streets. And that's where Crawley hangs out at as well. And so he tries to get information as Jake Lockley. So he's there, and Crawley says the slasher killed a friend of his, Reno Eddie, I think it was.
Yes.
And Crawley is 3 months late on his rent, which isn't surprising. When he does come across money, he often loses it at the track, or in other maybe less desirable ways than he should be spending his money.
Yeah, but he likes ponies.
Yeah, exactly. He gets kicked out, right? And he doesn't want to be out, on the street. So he tries to stay with a friend. His friend's like, "Hey, I got everybody else in here. I don't have any room." So unfortunately, Crawley's out wandering the streets, He runs into an alley. This Skid Row slasher accosts him and asks him the same thing, and and he calls Crawley a liar, and he raises his sickle, and you're not sure what kind of happens at that point, I think. But Stephen Grant, the rich character of Moon Knight, he and Marlene, who are Marlene technically works for him, but they're in a romantic relationship.
Absolutely.
They're getting ready for a fancy dinner and
fundraiser.
Yeah, a fundraiser. And while they're doing that, it switches to Crawley stumbling into Gina's diner, and he just collapses. He's all bloody. Gina rushes him to the hospital. They're not too keen on finding out exactly what happened to Crawley. They're a bit more concerned about how the medical services are going to be paid for. And of course, that's Doug mentioned. That's a lot of the writers, particularly for Marvel in the 70s. They were very social conscious, I'd say progressive liberal in that time period. And plus, I think Stan, which is another reason why I think you get strong storylines in the Bronze Age, Stan was really making a concerted effort to market towards late high school, college age readers. And so addressing some of their concerns and maybe being sympathetic to some of the ways they thought, I think was important as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think what happens is that the cops won't follow the leads. Gina's sons, Ray and Ricky, they track Lockley to Grant's mansion. So this is kind of a big deal because they only know Lockley as Lockley the cab driver, right?
Right.
But they find out that Lockley is indeed Stephen Grant. And so he says, all right, the show's over. I'll reveal it. I'm Moon Knight. I'm Lockley. I'm Stephen Grant. He reveals his identity to her and the sons and Crawley, and he puts them on the payroll.
That's right.
Crawley's like, jackpot. Now I can actually pay my rent. But they give kind of a backstory of Crawley. But he was a very successful salesman, had a wife and a son, but he started drinking, and the drink got the better of him. His wife left with their child, obviously, and he became homeless and a derelict, essentially from that point onward.
And that was 20 years ago.
Correct. 20 years ago. Yep. So Moon Knight, he goes undercover as a tramp or a bum, and Crawley and Moon Knight catch the slasher. Crawley knows the slasher, but it's a little, at this point, it's very clear. Even when the origin story was told, to me, I think it's pretty clear what's going to happen, but it's still a powerful story nonetheless.
Yeah, agreed.
But he's put on trial, and Crawley's testimony is going to be key, but he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I didn't see anything, because he realizes that the slasher is his son, Jimmy. Jimmy attacks Crawley in court, blaming him for their mother's death. He grabs one of the bailiff's guns and shoots a police officer and flees. Moon Knight catches up with him on a rooftop, and Moon Knight's like, just stop. And Jimmy keeps backing away from Moon Knight, and unfortunately he falls backwards. Moon Knight tried to grab him, but he couldn't, and he falls to his death. And Crawley, of course, unfortunately, blames himself.
Yeah,
for his son's death as well.
Great synopsis. I mean, heart-wrenching story. Yeah, you're right. The origin story of Crawley, they're sort of foretold what was going to happen.
Right.
But they're you knew there were going to be, this was not going to be a happy ending.
Right.
And it just sort of shows you the effects that alcoholism and broken marriages, things like that, can affect the son and have not geometric, could have future consequences that you don't foretell. at that point,
Yep.
from being a 5-year-old to being a 25-year-old vengeance-filled, fueled serial killer.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that happens to everybody. Of course it doesn't. But the way that the story was portrayed was, I mean, really heart-wrenching, I thought.
Yep. Agreed.
So, all right. Let's do
issue number 3.
Número 3, mi amigo.
As the kids say.
As the kids say. Yes, correct. As this kid says, at least. And here we go. And nice little painting back there.
Yeah.
Looks familiar. Some guy, in Italy maybe drew it.
Anyway. Worth a buck or two, yeah.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, if you find it at a garage sale, buy it for sure.
Exactly. Now, I will say, as big a fan of Sienkiewicz as I am, I'm not bowled over by too many of his earlier covers during this run. I think his covers got gradually better, and I think his interior art got gradually better. In my opinion, his interior art was good, but it was more traditional in the earlier part of the run. And kind of like how he was in New Mutants, he does do some experimentation with collages and things like that in the later part of the Moon Knight run, but really not during this 20-issue period.
Yeah, it's I mean, we're talking about nuances, but I could see a progression toward his more stylized methods later on, and the kind of jumbled up panels and things that he likes to do to shock you, those kind of things that are non-traditional. But I think his art is solid throughout.
It is, absolutely.
I got no complaints. I think the moodiness, the darkness, the shadowing is so appropriate for this series. So like I said, I'm not that big of a Sienkiewicz fan overall, even, but I think in here he did a pretty good darn job.
I agree. It's just maybe not as emblematic of what some people may be recognizing for.
Yes, correct. I mean, if you're looking at the more modern stuff, and you say this, you're like, this is not Sienkiewicz,
right?
But if you look at the progression, the later stuff, you can see the beginnings of his more stylized and really groundbreaking kind of art, which is sort of, it's very almost like Kafka-esque stuff, like transformations and things like that.
Right.
Anyway. So here we have number 3, Midnight Means Murder is the title. And it starts off with just a basic mugging going on there. And Moon Knight is, of course, saves the guy from being pummeled there. And all while that's going on, there is a robbery going on in a museum. And you see this guy in a black suit and black costume with a cape. And he's stealing the statue. from I'm like a museum kind of place. I forgot about exactly what it was. And then you see him later on in another like a nice place playing with this little self-player piano figurine thing. Right. So you're like, well, that's kind of an odd transition, but it's apparently important later on to see his psyche, right?
Right.
And then there's this guy who's sleeping, and he wakes up, and he apparently is a reporter, and he's about to be assassinated. But of course, Moon Knight intervenes, and we find out that he was in fact going to expose an organized crime ring, but he was foiled by Moon Knight because he's out there investigating all these kind of possible links to further crimes, right? And then we jump cut to an opera or a play or something like that, in which this lady has this necklace, it's the Herco's diamond necklace.
Right, it's on loan for the performance.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. And during the performance, this guy, almost like Phantom of the Opera, like swoops in. The guy in the black costume and cape rips it off her neck and absconds with the necklace. Moon Knight is not there at all. He's actually back in the mansion talking to Marlene, and they're going through their little workout routine. And then in the morning, he's there as Jake Loxley, and he's like said, "Call me Jake." Again, he transitions to his different personas. Okay, and he's eating breakfast, and now we meet the the cook Netta, and she makes his breakfast, and he very macho like snaps her in the butt, and she's like, men machos, that kind of thing. And then we also
I don't know that would fly nowadays.
No, it wouldn't fly nowadays. Absolutely not. That would be, suit right there. We also meet Samuels, who is the butler.
Right.
He's kind of like, well, not like Alfred, but he does take care of the house, and he has like the cab ready for him.
Yeah.
He's like, do we really need to have it like so shabby? He's like, oh, it's all part of the illusion, that kind of thing. I have to keep my persona in check, But he's also interested in the copter, and Frenchie finds him in the copter and kicks him out. And he's like, "You want to come with me?" Oh no!
And then he pretends like he's not interested.
I'm a distinguished gentleman. I would never do that. So Jake Luxley goes to Gina, and he asks Crawley, "Hey, how you doing? How the kids up?" And he gives Crawley a new hat because during the slasher thing he lost his chapeau.
Right.
And he says, "Hey, do you have any clue about that guy who stole that necklace?" And he's like, maybe there's a bar. I hear that there's a guys in the bar who may know about, where he has the necklace." So he goes in there. There's a bunch of ruffians playing pool, big tough guys. He asked them. He's like, "Nah, we don't know what you're talking about." Moon Knight doesn't buy it, so he gives him a little bit of a love tap here and there. And he one of them decides to let loose that, he doesn't know where they are, but he knows that something's going down tonight. That with that Midnight Man guy, something big, he says, I believe. So he goes back to being Jake, and during that going on, there's a fundraiser going on over at the Grant Mansion. So he has to go down there, begrudgingly, while he's investigating this. And during that, he's approached by this gentleman, Anton Mogart. Okay. And he's like, yeah, can I talk to you privately, Mr. Grant? He's like, I'd like to hire Mark Spector to protect a painting of mine. He's like, oh, why don't you, because I think the Midnight Man's going to take it. And he's like, well, why don't you?
And he had heard that Grant is an associate of Mark
Spector. Right, correct. And he was like, "Oh, why don't you have the police involved?" He goes, "Oh no, those guys are bumbling fools. They're Keystone Cops. I would never do that. I want somebody, who's tough, who can take on the Midnight Man and so forth." So he's like, "Okay." Now, all the while, Moon Knight, Mark Spector or whatever, Stephen Grant, it gets confusing. Starts thinking, "Hey, that's really unusual that he's paying me $100,000 to protect the painting," Right. And he's like, I'll take in trade that he's got like this empty spot in his wall. He's like, I'll take a painting in trade. And he was like, okay, we can work it out. So he goes to Frenchie. He's like, already suspects that that Mogart is actually the Midnight Man. So he finds out where he lives.
And the Midnight Man strikes at midnight. I don't know if
strikes at midnight, correct. So he goes down there at midnight.
And he's written in letters to the newspaper taunting.
Oh yeah. He's out there.
He's created a persona, essentially.
Yeah, he likes the stage, So he goes down there to this kind of big, huge, grotesque mansion way out by this river.
Yeah, kind of gothic, right?
Kind of very gothic, very dilapidated. It looks kind of dilapidated, but actually inside it's really new. Yeah. And he goes in through a window, and there's a trap. He gets shot at by this crossbow, and it's ripped through his cape, and it foils this painting on the other side. So he's expected. So he knows he's in the right place.
Right.
And of course, one after the Midnight Man, Bogart comes out and starts, so you made it. I knew you would, I knew you would have this guy come over. He's like, well, why did you do this? He goes, well, because I knew that there's no way I'm going to be able to steal stuff while you're around. So I got to get rid of you.
Right.
And the best way is to put you, in a situation where I'm in control. And so he's got him,
he's got a gun trained
on him. Yeah. And they're on the second floor there, and he starts shooting at him. Moon Knight jumps down to get away, and Midnight Man's running after him. They fight down at the bottom of the stairs, and during that fight, he finds that he's indeed Mogart. he's like, okay, yeah, it was obvious, that kind of thing. And then, while they're talking, Mogart gives him a quick shivvy there with the elbow, and he gets away. But Moon Knight throws him down this elevator shaft. But the elevator's right there. And of course, he hits the up button. So now he jumps on top of the elevator with Mogart. They're fighting on top of the elevator, and they go all the way up to the top. And which means there's like a 5-story mansion.
Yep.
And while they're fighting, they come out of the window, one of those cone kind of attic parts on top of the roof. And during that altercation, Marlene is down there because she followed him, knowing that again, this guy is always is putting himself in danger on purpose. So while Mogart's about to stab him with his dagger, she shoots him with a gun, hits him in the back. He falls, but he's caught by the cape by Moon Knight. But unfortunately, the cape doesn't hold. He falls into the river.
Yep.
And book out.
And Midnight Man is gone forever.
Midnight, no.
He's not.
No, hold on a second. Because Marlene is using rubber bullets because she didn't trust her aim, and she thought she might hit
Moon Knight.
Why do it at all then? I guess because he would have
right.
been killed, I guess, otherwise. So he takes the painting. Moon Knight takes the painting
as payment.
As payment, right? And he uses the
but he doesn't keep the painting.
No, he doesn't keep the painting. He donates it to a museum.
Yes.
As Mark Spector.
And
he puts the cloak in his mansion. He's like, sooner or later he's going to come back for it. And I want him to come to me.
Right.
Anyway, real interesting little story here, how things were set up. And how trying to get rid of the guy while you were in a better situation. That was smart. But it wasn't smart that he didn't have a much better plan and associates around to get rid of him. That was not smart.
I agree.
Okay. All right, Bill. Take number 4 away, my friend.
Issue number 4. Did you
want to show you the cover here real quick?
Yeah.
Let me show you the cover, and then we'll go to Bill.
Ooh.
There are 5 guys there, by the way. All right. And down there you see, gentlemen, the committee has succeeded.
All right.
That remains to be seen.
Yes. So it opens up with, I think, Moon Knight gets shot at. Only his cloak is hit, but he gets blinded by like a muzzle flash, and the person that shot at him gets away. Right. So that's kind of how it opens up. And then it shows in a dock warehouse. There's some the new committee. Hey, what's up, Lead Paint? The new committee, referring to the old committee that hired Moon Knight to get rid of Werewolf by Night, right? That was
right.
So this is spoiler alert. This is a retcon essentially, because they had issues with that whole how Moon Knight was introduced, because it wasn't necessarily going to be a recurring character. And so they kind of wanted to fix that. So the committee meets with 5 assassins. That's why Roger pointed out the number on the cover, including the one who shot at Moon Knight. So the new committee, the committee leader says that Moon Knight betrayed them and he needs to be killed. So that's kind of the explanation of the opening, and that kind of sets up the story and what's going to happen. Then it goes to the Stephen Grant's mansion. Frenchie tells Mark or Stephen Grant that he still keeps tabs on the committee, because Frenchie is the one who suggested Mark Spector to go after the Werewolf by Night and kind of hook them up with the committee, and even help supply the costume. So this is how it's all kind of retconned, and Frenchie was the in to that. And Frenchie still goes to committee meetings every now and then just to kind of keep an eye on them.
Yeah, it was part of an infiltration attempt.
Correct.
He was not really a
mercenary. He wasn't part. Yeah, he wasn't a member of the committee. Yes.
No, he was not a member.
He was a member, but as an infiltrator.
As an infiltrator, yes,
not because he was like-minded. Correct. Yeah. So as the cabbie, Jake Lockley, he visits Gina's Diner, and Crawley says that there are 5 hitmen in town. Crawley always has the the info on all the bad things that are going down.
Yep.
You know,
He has
he
an
said
ear to the ground everywhere.
absolutely. He said he's got all his little flies working for him. I think there's Dragon, Razor, Ice, and there are 2 more, but he doesn't know who they are, what their names are. And they all frequent the Queen's nightclub called In Flight.
It's in a plane.
Yes. It's kind of neat, kind of clever little thing. Moon Knight asks Gina's sons, Ricky and Ray, to get those other 2 names for him. And he asked Marlene to attend the committee meeting. So Ricky and Ray go down to the in-flight. They're asking a little too many questions, so they get a gun pulled on them. But they got out of it, and they got the other 2 names, Boom Boom and Bull. Meanwhile, Marlene applies as a club dancer or an exotic dancer at this club. And each of the assassins are trying to fulfill their contract with the committee. I think it was $125K they offered them to
25 each. 25 each. Yeah.
Right. There's a total of 5 of them. Yeah.
4, 5, yeah.
And so Boom Boom tries to blow up Moon Knight with dynamite. That's his thing, right? Is he's like a master of explosives in an alley, but it doesn't work. Bull, Razor, and Dragon ambush Moon Knight. And Moon Knight and Frenchie catch Razor, I think, and Dragon, but Bull escapes. Yep. That's right. And
they tracked him down to some kind of boxing match or something like that.
Yep. Marlene is with Ice. And Bull calls him. And then Ice suspects Marlene that she's not who she seems to be, and she might be in on this whole thing. But the hitmen meet, and they're like, I don't know if we can get this guy. I think it just makes more sense to rob the committee, essentially. So they lock everyone in the warehouse with, like, I think, bombs around it or mines or something.
Yeah, he mines the whole building. Yeah.
And they walk off with the $125K reward, or they plan to, and shoot anybody that escapes. So Moon Knight arrives. Ice shoots at him. Frenchie escapes because Frenchie was in there. He was in the building, right?
Yeah. He was acting as one of the committee guys.
Right. The building blows up, but Frenchie does escape. Boom Boom isn't so lucky. And Moon Knight and Bull are fighting. They're on a speedboat because Bull's trying to get away. And Moon Knight gets on the speedboat, and they're fighting back and forth. And Ice is trying to shoot Moon Knight from afar, and he accidentally shoots Bull. And so Bull kind of lands on the control of the speedboat, and it goes out of control, and it crashes onto the shore. As Ice aims at Moon Knight, Marlene gets in the way and starts fighting with him and makes him miss. And I think Moon Knight makes it to the roof that Ice is on when he was taking pot shots at him, and they fight, and he knocks out Ice. And that he was the last of the assassins to challenge him. So the cops get him, and I think the reward money is donated to charity or
the reward money, he takes it and he says the informants. Yeah.
He gives some to Crawley,
right,
Dina, and the boys, and then the rest to charity.
And he says, "I'll keep the rest for future issues that might arise."
Not comic book issues. Yeah,
comic book issues. Yeah, of course. What I really liked about this, this really was unconventional in a sense, a story, in that those 2 guys they sort of they found out, hey, we can't take this guy.
Right.
Right.
They just said, here are 2 paths. This seems like a much easier, safer path for us than this one.
Yeah.
Which is always a concern, right? Whenever, including as a nation, when you hire mercenary soldiers, what are their loyalties? Will they really perform for money if somebody offers them more money, right?
Yeah, you're not hiring high character guys here.
Right.
But I thought it was clever that Monk went that route, and said, "Hey, listen, we there's this guy's gonna kill us. He's killed already 3 of us, or he's captured us. So it's better to get the money and where we can control the narrative here." So anyway, I thought that was a little clever twist.
Yep.
All right, next issue here is number 5. There are some things you can't fight. And we have that ghoulish looking guy coming out of the grave on fire. That's not exactly what happens, but this is called Ghost Story.
What's up, Steve?
Hey, Steven Spock, how you doing, buddy? So this one here is kind of a departure from the other issues. It doesn't really involve a lot of the other characters, supporting characters. It is strictly well, it does a little bit, but not much.
It feels a little bit like, I won't say a fill-in, but almost like we had a lot of this prepped already if we were running behind, and let's just finish up what we had prepped and throw this in and reset for next month. That's kind of what it feels like to me, because it doesn't really advance the Moon Knight narrative.
That's what I was going to get to exactly. It's just sort of a status quo.
Yep.
Later on there is a fill-in, but for sure, no doubt about it.
Yes.
Different writers and artists and everything.
Yeah.
But this one here, I mean, it's essentially it opens up with these 2 kids approaching this weird looking house with red windows, big, huge, gothic kind of thing, like similar to the one with Midnight Man, yeah. Yep. But this is in the middle of like nowhere, and there is a graveyard attached to it.
Right.
And they're wanting to enter, but actually Moon Knight scares them away. He's like up there and he swoops down and they're like, it's a ghost,
Right.
Because he's white against the black moon and everything. So he scares them away. And the reason he's there is that, well, this story is really weird in that there's flash forwards, flashbacks.
Yes.
So, bear with me here as I go through it. But at this point, you see 2 guys, Creech and Parkins, I think their names are.
Yep.
And yeah, whatever.
We didn't name them, right?
We didn't name them.
John Creech and Frank Parkins.
And they're going through the graveyard and going to the house. And apparently they were part of a team with this guy Redditch, okay?
Edward Redditch, yep.
That robbed his inheritance. I mean, think about the logic here. He's a wanted man, so he couldn't go and claim the inheritance.
Right.
So he went and stole it. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So, but apparently he left them behind at some point. We don't know at this point why.
Right.
And
they're tracking him. Yes.
Yeah, they're tracking him and the loot, right? Yep. And he's like, we know this is where he's going to go. This was his house, his mom's house. And he's like, well, this is weird because this place is like supposedly haunted. People have disappeared in the past.
Right.
There have been 4. Yeah, 4. There have been stories of hauntings, of things moving, and all this stuff, and there. And now you flash back to when they were kids, and Redditch is in the house there, and I think Parkins wants him to come out. Right. He's like, no, yeah, come on, I can't play. I'm gonna go be with my mom for a while. So he starts, he's like, yeah, he was a real mama's boy.
Yeah.
And then again, you flash back again, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, you flash back, but not that far back, where he's like, oh, my mother has been pronounced dead.
Right.
Apparently she was
declared dead.
Declared dead, right.
Yeah.
But she was put into some kind of asylum or something.
Yep. Mental institution, yeah.
And she's been missing for 9 years. So after 9 years, missing persons were declared legally dead.
Yep.
Right, even though they're not sure if they are.
So he's at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital.
Bellevue Psychiatric, that was it. So Redditch, which is the son, is like, despondent. He's like, oh, my mom,
Right.
Yeah, I put her away, and now that she's gone, but guess what? There's $500,000 that were left for you
in a suitcase. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, well, he recovered real quick.
Yeah, he did.
Right. So, so he's like, okay, you can just go claim it. And he goes, no, I can't. Again, I can't, because he had pulled a job
Right.
previously, and he's a wanted man. So he's like, let's the three of us are going to go down there, and we'll just take it. But again, we flash back to the present, and Perkins and Creech are breaking into the house.
Right.
Moon Knight is following them in there. Again, you flash forward again here. I'm just reading. I'm looking through the comics so I can keep it straight, because it's so much.
Right.
And here we have it. Now Moon Knight is Jake Loxley. He's back at the mansion. Oh yeah. So he's telling him he's Frenchie to follow him. He's going out in the cab,
right,
to patrol or whatever. Now we go back to the house, and now Moon Knight is in the house. They get spooked, the Perkins and Creech, by this owl that swooped through a drape.
Right.
And it seemed like a ghost. Creech is the one I think is like kind of.
Yeah, and the other one derides him the whole time.
Yeah, he's like, no, you're a wimp. You're whatever. And now you flash back to when they robbed the.
What's up, Jackson?
They go back to where they robbed the caretaker of the box with the money. All right.
Right.
And during that robbery, he there's a lady there, and he points a gun at her. He's like, please don't shoot me. I'm a mother. He was like, oh, you're a mother. And he shot her because, he's got this trauma about his mom.
Yeah.
He just snapped. And they're like, why'd you do that? You crazy dude. And they're all in trouble. Yeah. They're all in trouble. They shoot their way out. They get into the car and start getting away. And that's when Jake Loxley sees them get away, and he starts following them. But during that chase, they shoot up a police car. It goes off of a bridge.
They had to stop for gas, right?
That was afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and at that point, the bridge is all stuffed up so that Loxley loses them. But Frenchie, remember, is around,
circling above, right?
And again, you flash forward again, and the Creech and Perkins guys are in the house, and they find food cans in the house, which seems like weird because it's been abandoned for 9 years or whatever.
Right.
And a cat in there, and cat food.
Right.
And Moon Knight is just following them, saying, I'm just seeing what they're up to, And again, they flash back to the gas station. They go back to the gas station, and Redditch is in the back seat with the box, and he's like, it's mine. My treasure is mine. And he just starts going bananas. And he leaves the two guys in the car, steals another car, and takes off. Just because he just doesn't want them to join in on the treasure, which is in this box. Remember, there was a money, but there was also another thing in there. So they're like, oh, he's leaving us behind. No way. They after Redditch now, Perkins and Creech.
Right. He said they can keep the money.
Yeah,
but they're thinking, that's because he's got a whole bunch more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But and then Moon Knight, Frenchie following them, catches up to Frenchie, and Moon Knight is now on the copter following them wherever their destination is, and that destination is that house in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And then the Creech and Perkins, they find a room in there with 4 skeletons. Those are the missing.
Yeah.
All right. That they were apparently killed by his father, I guess. He was like a hunter,
Right.
Yeah. And he just went one day. He just didn't come back, And then while they're like, oh, okay, that's what happened to them, right? And then they go to another room, and then there's a skeleton with a shotgun, and it shoots at them.
Right.
But I think it's actually Redditch that had a little wire.
Yep.
But they're freaked out totally at this point, just totally freaked out, and they're like, okay, let's get out of here. but the Moon Knight starts pretending he's the police. He goes, "You're surrounded."
Right, and they start freaking out. What are we gonna do? Catch us with all this money?
They go down to the boiler room in the basement, and we got to get rid of the evidence.
Yeah.
So they throw it in the boiler. They turn it on, and the thing has never been maintained. It explodes.
Right.
but they survive and they find a tunnel. It explodes a hole in the ground. They find a tunnel. They go through the tunnel. It leads to the cemetery. And they're like, oh, that's how Eddie was moving around. And,
Right.
But of course, Moon Knight is waiting for them over there. He freaks them out. They start running. The guy runs into a tombstone. And because after he trips him with a truncheon and he hits a tombstone, he's out like a light. Then the Perkins, the guy with the shotgun, starts shooting at Moon Knight. But again, Moon Knight evades the shells. He hits him with those Trescent darts, knocks him out. And then he finds Reddit. And then he's okay. So those two guys are taken care of. Then he finds Redditch in a grave with a flashlight. And he's like white as a sheet.
Including his hair too, right?
Yeah, his hair is white. I mean, literally scared to death.
Yeah.
And apparently his mom is still alive. And that's what scared him to death. It was her in his dad's outfit, like
hunting outfit.
Yeah. And apparently she's still alive, but she is, she's
gone.
not all there. Yeah. She keeps saying, oh, he was always hunting. He's always covered in blood. He just keeps repeating the same thing. And then he finds the treasure. The treasure was the deed of the house,
which is now
in flames because the boiler blew up and it's going to be burnt down to the ground.
Yeah.
And he starts talking to the mother, and he's like, "Yeah, I surprised him. I don't know why he claimed I was dead. Apparently, she'd been living in the house the whole time."
Right.
And so none the wiser. So he says, "Okay, we're leaving for home," and I guess he takes her back to the mental institution.
Yeah. I thought it was a good issue. It was confusing though.
Very
in some
confusing.
areas when it would jump back and forth, but
because sometimes it was just one panel and then another 3 panels, then another. So they could have done a better job, I think, of encapsulating the flashbacks. But a cool little karma kind of story there at the end,
Yep.
You believe in that stuff, which I don't. But anyway. Okay, next.
Issue number 6.
Número 6. Here we go. Hold on. Doesn't want to get out of the back.
Do we have a blue wrench to deal with D. Jackson Roy Kirk, who has arrived in the chat? He's misbehaving already, Roger.
What is he? What's up, Jackson? I haven't been able to sleep. I could have come here earlier.
Hey,
Steven Spock. How you doing, buddy? I love this man to death. I love him to death. Sounds like one of my lost weekends.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here's number 6.
That
really
is an
cool.
Earl Norem.
Earl Norem painted cover, right?
Yes.
Look at that.
So that's a nice treat.
Very nice.
But other than that, Sienkiewicz still does the interior art. Doug Mensch still writes it. So this was a good one. Moon Knight gets a telegram calling in a marker, right? So essentially calling in a favor that he owes. And it's from someone named Joshua in St. Lucian. So Stephen Grant, or in this case, Mark Spector, Marlene, and the whole Gina's Diner gang fly on Stephen Grant's dime to St. Lucian, right? He's an old friend, Josh Mendasi, I think, Josh Mendasi.
Joshua,
Joshua Mendasi. He needs help. At this point in time, he's like a director for the police there, and they have some missing persons cases, several of them. And the natives think that it's a voodoo priest, l'Angel Blanc, or the White Angel of Death, who is to blame for these missing persons. That he's turning them into zombies. And then, so that's kind of the setting. Then they do a flashback. How does Joshua know Mark Spector? So in South Africa, Joshua saves Spector's life, and that's kind of where Spector said, "Hey, anything you need, you got. All you need to do is let me know." So Moon Knight finds a man. They flash forward again, and Moon Knight says, "Hey, I'll figure it out," or at least Mark Spector does. He says, "I'll figure it out," as Moon Knight. But he finds a man in a skeleton costume who's loading people at night into a truck. He saves the folks that are being loaded into the truck, but he tells Marlene he's losing Moonlight's strength. So this is kind of a recurring type thing too, where it's almost like, if anyone's ever seen Family Guy, can anyone hear Stewie or not? Do they understand Stewie or not? It's kind of like that. It's like whether or not Moon Knight has strength because he has a spiritual connection to Khonshu, or whether it's all in his mind and he thinks these things. And it's never really resolved. It's kind of up to the reader to determine that, to make their own determination. But
they keep it very ambivalent.
Right. He has Ricky and Ray.
Hey, Tat. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's going on, Tat? They have like transmitters, and then he has them sneak onto the truck so they can figure out where these people are being taken and see if they can take them to the leader, right? And essentially, the White Angel is injecting these people to turn them into a zombie-like state and have them work in the poppy fields, so they can make heroin, right? Norman Vidal, I think is his name. That's the White Angel. The White Norman Angel. Vidal. Yeah. And he ultimately, Moon Knight starts fighting him, and Joshua arrives on the scene, and he shoots Vidal. And I think the second floor of this was like a warehouse or a barn or something. It's packed with heroin, and it collapses because of all the weight of the heroin, and it apparently kills the White Angel. And that's how it's kind of it ends, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and they end their vacation there. At St. Lucian. Yeah. Again, this one at least you see that Mark Spector had relationships in the past, and that he owes this guy,
right?
And that he's an honorable man. That he knew that marker meant that he owed a favor, because he's paying back what was his life.
And I like when they do some of those with Mark Spector, because they try to have Moon Knight paint Mark Spector as this awful person who he's trying to atone for. But he really wasn't. He did some awful things for money, but just like anybody, there's no person that's pure evil or pure good, right? They have shades in between. And Mark Spector obviously had some sort of conscience. Otherwise, he wouldn't have risen up with Frenchie against Bushman, right? Sure. It's just the degree to which he said, yeah, I'm cool with doing that, or I'm not.
Right. Yeah. I agreed. It does give him gives him more depth here.
Yep, exactly.
Because again, he didn't just decide one day to become a mercenary, and then decide not to.
Right.
There was a history there, which we'll get into it little by little in this series and the next. But yeah, a complex character. He does do the personality things. Marlene suspects it's because he can compartmentalize things.
Right.
And the things that hold down Mark Spector don't hold down Jake Loxley or Moon Knight, etc. But anyway, that's theory. That's like Bill was saying. We don't know if he has superpowers or if he really just thinks that he's being possessed by Khonshu. But whatever it is, the results are the same. Okay. Yeah. So in this issue, it starts out as Jake, and we're trying to get
number 7.
I'm sorry, did I not show it? There you go.
No.
Let's try to go a little bit quicker, Bill, because it's
it is. We're getting away.
We get involved and we lose.
Yes.
So
it's already been an hour. Jeez.
Yeah, I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, holy smokies. So Crowley finds, actually goes in front of the car and says, hey, Jake, I need your help. There's this friend of mine, Red Shirt. Again, he's got like all kinds of friends on the Bowery and the whole bit. Right. And he's like, he says that there's going to be this big, I think he calls it the dismantling of society or something going on. and so he says, where is, where is he? He's like, in Chicago. They're in New York. So he goes to Gina's diner, and and he's like, okay, Crowley is again singing, hey, you got to help this guy. This is something big, trust me. And so I said, okay, let's go, let's take the crew up to Chicago, but not the boys, not because Gina's like, they're in school, you can't take these guys over there, right? It's like, oh no, this is going to be a simple thing anyway, it's not a big deal,
right?
So he takes Marlene and Crowley up there, and of course Frenchie.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because then you sort of you're flashing there to where this guy, who I forgot what his name was. Oh, the guy that's going to be with a werewolf mask. I forgot what his name was. Anyway, but he apparently Simon. Yes, that's him. Sorry. Thank you. Right. He has this chemical, which when you introduce it into the water, essentially just makes you hallucinate, makes you go berserk, makes you violent. So he gets the stuff. He's got a partner in a Frankenstein mask, and he's at the municipal waterworks thing, and he starts introducing this chemical into the water pumps there. Okay.
Yeah, to the water supply. It's like a 55-gallon drum that.
Yeah, big one of those metal drums, yep. Right. And at that point, Loxley and Moon Knight, they're still in New York at that point, but they're about to leave for Chicago the next morning. Jump cut to this family. They're eating breakfast. They're at home, and the two kids are there. And they start drinking, water from the tap, yep. Because they're thirsty. Of course.
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't, right? You trust your water to be clean and safe and all that. And then they then fly down to Chicago. They're at the hotel, and then all of a sudden, this one guy starts. A lady starts going berserk, starts screaming, and biting this guy's lip, and they're like, and what's going on here? Is this some kind of virus going on? And all the while they're Moon Knight is on the way down there to Chicago. And more of these incidents are popping up. People going absolutely berserk, right? Crashes,
they don't know why.
Going on.
Right.
So Moon Knight is like, okay, we got to figure out, what's going on here. So he becomes Moon Knight, goes up in the chopper, starts looking around to see what's occurring. All the while, Crowley is going to try to find out from his end with his people, who is starting? Who's the guy who's starting this? Okay, then Frenchie is actually also going to the police station, trying to find out what they know about what's going on. Well, while he's there, he gets thirsty. He drinks from a water fountain.
And they don't know at this point that it's the water.
They don't know yet. Right. Yeah, they're trying to figure it out. And so Moon Knight is, because of his experience, he's like, could this be chemical warfare? Or could this be some kind of germ warfare? And he's like, hold on a second. The water supply could be it. So he calls Frenchie. He says, don't drink the water. But he says, I already did. Yeah. And apparently he went bananas while he was in the copter, and the copter crashes into the bay there.
Bye copter.
Bye copter. Moon Knight has to go in there and rescue Frenchie. He's
fight him and rescue him.
Yeah. And the copter is just trashed. Yeah. But while after he rescues him, Frenchie, and he's just gone berserk, he starts choking Moon Knight, and he has to punch him and knock him out. While this is going on, that guy Simon is arguing with his friend because he's like, okay, he has an ultimatum to the city, as I recall.
Yep.
You better pay me, what was it?
25 mil.
25 mil, right? Or else I'll continue
or also poison
the rest
the
of the
water.
water supply, right? This
Yeah,
is
but
just
not necessarily with that chemical. Yeah,
not that chemical, right?
It was
But
just straight poison. Yes,
right. But they're not sure who it is and what they're doing.
right.
So while Moon Knight is going back to the hotel to find Marlene, there's a big, huge mob of people that he has to fight just to get over there. And I
Right.
mean, it takes him a while, but
because he tried to call Marlene. Did you say that to tell her don't
and
drink the water?
she's not answering because, of course, she drank some water over there. So and these guys are like howling. They're totally just turned feral, essentially.
Right.
And then Moon Knight finally approaches the area, and he's during that happening, he sees the guy with the mask, the wolf mask and the Frankenstein mask, and he attacks the guy with the wolf mask, but while he's being fired upon by the guy in the Frankenstein mask. So he's chasing them, and he chases all the way down to the subway, and what they had also to protect themselves, these two guys, while they were out, is this gas, and that he spreads the gas down where Moon Knight, behind him, where Moon Knight is, and he starts hallucinating. Moon Knight does. He thinks he's on the moon, and that the people are these aliens called Moon Kings, but they're actually just the crazed Chicagoans that are in the subway.
Right.
They hold him in front of the subway train while it's coming. He thinks it's a dragon.
Yeah.
He thinks he's got to get away. And but right then it's cut off, and you see Marlene in the hotel, all bug-eyed with a glass dagger in her hand, waiting.
Right.
Says, "I can't wait till he gets back here." That's where it ends. Cliffhanger.
Yeah. And that's a really powerful, interesting image, that last part. And we do need to hurry, but yeah, I'll just mention that one part is that I think that obviously Marlene's had the water, and it manifests a lot of her resentment, I think, towards Steven, toward Moon Knight and his many personalities, and her having to deal with that and worry about it and things like that. And I think that manifestation comes out with this poisoning.
Good point. Very good point.
So yes, issue number 8. There it is. That's a nice cover. I like that one. I like those black ones. Those were really nice. Exactly. So still affected by that like hallucinogenic gas. Moon Knight flattens against the wall as the dragon zooms past him, which is actually the subway train. He jumps on the head of the dragon, and he's kind of slowly coming out, in and out, and he realizes it's a train. He doesn't need to get to the brain, but he does need to get to the conductor, knock him out so he can stop the train. He jumps, he heads to the hotel because now he's really worried about Marlene. And I think he encounters Crawley in the sewer, right? And Crawley says that the team whose gang member, Ernie, he said that he knows this gang member, Ernie, and Simon is hoping that Simon's the leader. He's hoping that many of the other gang members are killed, so he doesn't have to split the money as much. Yeah. More money for him. Crawley knocked out 2 of the gang members at like a little, wasn't it like an apartment or something?
Yeah.
At Ernie's house. Ernie's house. Yeah. Ernie's house.
Yeah. Ernie's house. Yeah.
Yep. Moon Knight finally finds the hotel room. It's in shambles, so he knows something happened.
Sure, Jackson.
See Jackson. It's either she drank the water or she's been absconded or something. But Marlene was hiding in the shower as there's water flowing throughout, and she stabs Moon Knight in the back with that glass shard that she was holding. And this is a little bit rough, understandable, but rough. But Moon Knight wallops her and, gets her a good knocking out and ties her up. And Crawley tells Moon Knight the two gang members had left for City Hall, I think it was.
Yes, that's correct.
And they were expecting on the roof of City Hall to get their $25 million drop, but tear gas instead of the ransom is delivered. And the National Guard assaults City Hall. Moon Knight followed Simon and followed the getaway car. And there was Simon, and then there was the Fox, right? I think Simon shoots the Fox, the guy in the Fox mask, for objecting to the poisoning of the water supply at this point. And Simon has this oil drum of poison. He says, they screwed me over. They didn't give me the money. I'm going to make them pay, essentially. And so he's getting ready to deliver that drum of poison to the municipal water supply. And Moon Knight throws a crescent dart, knocks the gun from his hand, and just stops the drum from rolling into and pouring into the water.
Yep.
And then I think the end scene is as they start getting things back together. Part of trying to clean up the city is they're pulling the chopper out of the drink, and that's when you realize, well, we might have ourselves a new chopper on our hands at some point.
Yep. That's right.
All right.
Yeah. Again, I really this is cool because we have yet to see a real super villain here. It's just guys with plans, and schemes, etc. We we will have one, I think, later on, but I think that level of villainy is where this should be at,
right? Right.
Especially since we're not sure if he's actually have any kind of superpowers,
supernatural powers, right?
Yeah, he might be a little stronger. He might have some kind of senses or something. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know. All right, so let's go to 9 here. And yes.
What's up, Bugsy?
Hey, Bubs. Story told me the old folks home. You're not far from the truth, buddy.
Yeah, true.
Let me take a drink here because the old palate.
That's true. It's not what it used to be. Got to wet the whistle, as the kids say.
Yeah, that's right. It's not as wet as it used to be. Whatever. And
easy for you.
Saliva doesn't produce as much as it used to be. Yes.
No relation.
Yes. So, and this one, I'm trying to go fast. He finds Bushman escapes prison. So, of course, what is Moon Knight thinking? He's coming after me.
Yep.
No doubt about it. I'm the one who put him there.
That's right.
So he interrupts this gambling ring, knowing that there might be informants in there that know what Bushman is up to. So he goes in there and he just says, hey, does anybody know anything? No, of course not. They start trying to shoot him. He, of course, dispatches them. And finally, he finds one guy and says, well, he's not here. But there's another, while he's interrogating this guy, another guy slips out.
Right.
So he's like, that guy probably knows something.
I might follow him.
So I'm going to follow that guy. And it's like raining, pouring. So he becomes Jake Lockley, and follows him. All the while at Grant Mansion, Marlene is awoken at midnight by this disfigured man. Okay. And she screams, and Frenchie goes out and tries to figure out what it is, but he gets away, whoever that man is. And Loxley follows the man through the rain. And while that's going on, they call him and say, hey, look, there's this guy who was over here, come back. and then Netta comes out and says Samuels is gone. Apparently, he's been kidnapped by whoever that guy is, that disfigured guy. And so he's like, okay, I'll be there. But while he's doing that, he finds that the guy stopped and he went down this manhole. So of course he's like, I got to follow this lead.
Right.
I'll never find. He thinks it's Bushman. Remember, so he's really focused here. Goes down into the sewers, rats everywhere, and they're all thinking, well, could that have been Bushman that went to the mansion? Didn't look like him. He was not. He didn't have that tattoo. It was just kind of disfigured guy. So Moon Knight goes to the end of the sewer system, and there's like some kind of big like, I don't know what that is, some kind of big cistern or something, and there's all these like ropes and webbings everywhere.
Right.
And there's like weird trash everywhere, tubs and boxes and things like that. And while he's climbing up there, he gets caught in the web, and of course, it was Mogart.
Yeah.
The guy that escaped in issue 3, I think it was.
Yeah.
He apparently survived, but while he took that drink that he fell into the water, it went through the sewer system, all the chemicals and everything disfigured him. So he just looked totally horrendous.
Right.
Just like that.
Burned his face. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So he, of course, wants revenge, and instead of trying to, reacquire his treasures, he's become kind of a trash collector.
Right.
In that big sewer room. So while he was at Grant Mansion, he stole the statue of Khonshu, and he throws it at him and smashes it down remember, this is like 4 or 5 stories up.
Yeah.
And smashes it right by Moon Knight, thinking, now I have him. I have crushed the source of his power, whether it's real or not. Moon Knight thinks it's real. So even though he's crushed, Mogart still wants to kill him. So he's shooting him all over the place. But while he's reloading, Moon Knight knocks him off from that top one, and he sees that he's like all disfigured. But he wants to know where Samuels is. So he doesn't want to, lock him unconscious.
Right.
And while that's going on, Bushman was actually the one manipulating all this.
Right.
And he has Samuels tied up in that room, and he blasted a hole so all the water's coming in to fill in the room. And that is where it ends. Samuels is tied up while that water is coming in. They can't get to where Bushman is. He's in the steel door way up there.
Yep. All right. That's where 9 ends.
That's where 9 ends.
Yep.
I think I went a bit faster on that one.
A little bit.
There's
issue 10. All right. And this is obviously continuing that story. Marlene and Frenchie, they know something's up. They find Jake Lockley's cab, and they find this manhole, figure out Moon Knight must have gone down there. So they follow him down. Moon Knight, they got to figure out a way to escape, right? Bushman's gone. He's leaving for dead. So he takes a crescent dart, and he's able to pry a brick out of the wall as the water keeps flowing in. And he removes the bricks and barely makes it through. Barely makes it back up to the surface. And he thinks, I can remove enough to where we can all get through. So Midnight Man escapes through the hole. Samuels is cut down as the whole inlet collapses, and he and Moon Knight make it through the sewers just barely. I think Moon Knight loses his cloak, and then into the river. Moon Knight has Khonshu's head from the busted statue, and he ultimately just wanders off. Right? He feels his powers are gone now with the Khonshu statue having been crushed. Yep. Frenchie uses the new copter, because remember they lost the last one in Chicago, to search for him for 3 days. Can't find anything. Bushman begins a new crime wave in the meantime. And Gina and Crawley finally find him in Central Park, grieving Randall. That was his brother. So that was call back to like the rampaging Hulk.
Yep.
I think at home, Marlene shows him the statue of Khonshu. She says that was just a copy that I had made that what was stolen by Midnight Man and busted, not the original. So, and she has a new costume for him, and now he thinks, all right, I'm back to where I need to be. I feel like I'm invincible. He tracks, battles, captures Bushman. He feels like a new man, like he's had a renewal of spirit. But he still doesn't really know if what Marlene had said is true, if the original or a copy was actually broken. And so that kind of leaves doubt in his mind, and obviously doubt in the reader's mind as well.
Yeah, good one. Again, another layer of uncertainty to add to the already pretty deep layers of uncertainty as to what his if anything, his powers come from. I have the honor of doing this issue, which is infamous on Cover Slingers.
For it is
clown,
indeed,
yes, for the clown there and the somewhat unusual.
Bub has to have that. I'm sure the type of collector Bub is.
So we won't get into that because we don't want to be here all night. So this is called To Catch a Killer, and there's a drug deal going on here under a bridge. And Moon Knight got, again, there will be fill in more later, but he got wind of that's going down. And the guy says that that the lady who was supposed to be here is missing, and when I get her, she's going to be permanently missing. It's this really big guy who's the drug dealer named Creed. So Moon Knight breaks it up, fights Creed, and Creed really is a tough dude, and gives Moon Knight a hard time, and he underestimates him, and he gets away. But the other guy, he gets the best of and is arrested later on. So he goes back to the mansion, talks to Marlene, and while that's going on, this lady comes in looking for Mark Spector, I believe, and she's French, but apparently she's looking for Frenchie, but she didn't know Frenchie was there, and she knew that Stephen Grant was associated with Mark Spector. But once she's there, Samuels calls Mark Spector, and he says, "Oh, you want Frenchie? Well, do you want to see him?" And she's like, "What?" And yeah, he's there, and apparently they were lovers.
Isabel, right?
Isabel, right? They were lovers, and they had they were deeply in love. But she comes with this package, and it says, if I don't come back in 10 days, you can have what's in the package. But please don't look in there. And I noticed that he was like, well, what happened? And he's like, I can't explain things now. She says she can't explain things now. And he retells the story of how they met, and how when he was a mercenary with Mark Spector, how he during one of the campaigns he saw her on the other side.
Yeah, in Africa.
Yeah. In Africa, right. And she just left, and he never saw her again. He didn't know what happened. Later on, a couple days go by, and he sees in the paper that she's been killed. And he's despondent. He goes, he doesn't want, he opens the package just because he wants to know why she was killed, and it's a bunch of money. Right. And apparently she was supposed to do a drug buy, but she just didn't want to go through with it because of the how it was affecting, killing people, etc. But she tried to disappear, but she got found out and got killed by that Creed guy. So now they want Frenchie wants to get the guy. He's hell bent on vengeance for killing his his love. And he again, Mark Spector tries to sort of calm him down, but he's like, listen, they tracked down the guy to New Orleans, which is why you saw the Mardi Gras thing on there.
Yep.
And the Creed guy is actually during Mardi Gras, he's actually performing feats of strength. He's holding up 4 women, incredibly strong dude. And Frenchie sees him and says, "Hey, Isabel sends her love," and he's like, "Oh, you know, obviously he knows that he's been found out." So they fight in the street. He's got this dagger, and because of all the people around, he gets away temporarily, while some of his guys are wrestling with Moon Knight and hold him off for a while. But he follows them to this corner like warehouse thing.
Yep.
Moon Knight goes in and he opens one of the crates, and it's heroin. And of course, Frenchie follows him in there. And Creed is in there as well. And Frenchie has him in his sights. Just as he's about to get him, another accomplice comes from behind and distracts Frenchie, and he gets shot by the accomplice.
Right.
Moon Knight goes berserk and whacks the accomplice, and then goes after Creed. But Creed, is so strong, he throws barrels at him, and he's got him in a bear hug to crush him, from his ribs. But Moon Knight is able to punch him out of that. And just as he's about to just wail on him, Frenchie stops him. He goes, "He's mine," and just nails Creed and bludgeons him, but doesn't kill him. He wants to, but he restrains himself. And then it ends with him at the grave. And he's like, "Now I've made a break." Because she said previously that she had made a break from him, because of the situation that she was caught in. And now he's making a break from her because she's obviously no longer around.
Yeah. Very good synopsis. Probably one of my favorite of the early issues.
Yeah, agreed.
I love them exploring a little bit of Frenchie's past and kind of adding some nuance to him. I wish they had done a little bit more of that throughout the series. Yeah,
I agree. But I think in this series, you do get a lot of depth for the supporting characters, which is not usual for most series, actually.
True. Yeah.
So I too am glad that we get a little backstory on Frenchie. That again, he wasn't just a mercenary. He had a life before that.
Yep.
All right, 12.
Issue number 12. Another Frank Miller cover.
There you go.
Great one. Morpheus, the living vampire. What? No, not Morpheus, the living vampire. So this is Robert Markham, who takes an experimental drug to cure a disease, and a drug that's issued to him by Marlene's brother. But we'll get to that real quickly. It transforms him into a super-powered creature with the ability to manipulate ebon or dark energy, right? Formed from his maddened subconscious because he can't sleep. He calls himself Morpheus for that reason. So no relation between the two. It could be confusing if people didn't know. Yeah. And he targets the doctor, who happens to be Marlene's brother. They gave him the drug. It was all part of an experiment. He knew what he was doing and everything, but he blames Marlene's brother. So with information from Detective Flint, who is a begrudging associate of Moon Knight's, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Mutual respect and help at times. Moon Knight finds Morpheus, and he's able to cancel his incredible dark energy manipulative power by tricking him into striking a generator, and it absorbs the positively charged electricity.
With the negative,
cancels out or negates his power.
The negative Evon energy, yeah.
Exactly. So that's like a really quick, fast issue number 12, because I think we got to speed through it a little bit.
Yeah, we got to speed through it. So I'll try to do the same thing here.
All right.
That was the first really super powered villain that he's encountered. What am I putting you back on there? So and
Ron Wilson cover for this one.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Did I show it right here? Yeah, co-starring Daredevil.
Ooh.
So yeah, and this story is neat because there's a guy who's getting out of prison, right? And he is the target of Moon Knight or Locks, Mark Spector, right? And then there's his accomplice is Jonathan Powers, the Jester, who Daredevil is after because he's like, okay, he got out for good behavior, but he knows he's going to be up to no good, right? So they're both
Jester
following.
And Taggart was the other one. Yeah,
Taggart is the other guy. They're both following these guys, knowing that they're eventually going to be up to no good, right?
Right.
And Daredevil, like he hangs on the back of a cab and that picks up Jonathan Powers from the prison. And the guy, the cabbie's like, man,
yeah, shocks are bad in the back.
Shocks are bad back there. So he finds information from Crawley about Taggart and what he's up to. And Taggart actually got out beforehand, so he's setting up the toys or the robots for Jester, who wants to get revenge on the director who humiliated him and fired him and destroyed his acting career. He thinks, right. So
James Martin,
So while Daredevil is about, Moon Knight is also there, right? And he sees that Daredevil is about to, because Jester didn't break the law until he socked this guy who criticized him for.
But even more, he's following Jester to get to Taggart.
To get to Taggart, right?
Yeah, and he's like Daredevil's going to catch him, and I'll never find Taggart.
I'll never find him. So he fights with Daredevil to prevent him from stopping the Jester. And he's like,
"Don't you love when heroes
bad idea, but
another,
I don't have any idea. I don't have any other choice." They fight in this arcade, so Daredevil's senses are scrambled, and thus he can't really make out when Moon Knight throws his truncheon. He knocks him out pretty good. All the while, the Jester and Taggart get away, and they go to the where the performance is in this auditorium, and they have these robots that are essentially keeping the audience hostage, right? And Jester is then tells the director, get the receipts from this performance.
Right.
I'm sorry?
You're gonna rob them. Yes.
Yeah, he's gonna rob them, right. And again, but while he's doing this, he's like doing this in a performative manner. He's like wants the audience to applaud and all this stuff. And then the plan was to have Taggart in a helicopter above the building, to take him away. But what he didn't know is that Taggart had already been captured by Moon Knight, and Moon Knight told Frenchie to go up there and pretend like he's the helicopter. So Jester grabs the helicopter ladder, not knowing who it is, and he just lets him off right where the police are, and they arrest the Jester. And story over.
Yeah. That was a good one.
That was a
good synopsis. Yeah. All right. Issue number 14. Back to Sienkiewicz for the cover. Yeah. This is probably a great cover.
Fabulous.
And this is one of my favorite stories of this 20.
Yeah, this is my favorite story. Yeah, by far. Yeah.
So I'll try to make it real quick. Joe Mad Dog Fasanera, right, escapes from prison and goes on a rampage with his buddies, his stoolies around his old neighborhood. He's looking for money that his father had stolen and hidden 7 or 8 years earlier. His mother is Scarlet, and she wants to find him and save him from himself before he completely throws his life away, right?
Yep.
So Moon Knight sees Scarlet, and he follows her to this old abandoned church where she'd been living for the last 3 years. She tells her whole story to Moon Knight. Essentially, Joe's father, she was a nun, but then met Joe's father, who went to the church looking for a priest to confess to, and they hit it off, and she abandoned the nun's life, right? The nunnery, or I don't know what that's called, and married him and had a child, and he turned out to be a real jerk, and he got into trouble and ended up getting killed. But he had hidden some money around where he had first discovered his angel, who was Scarlet, right?
Right.
And so that would be the understanding that it was in the church. And she thinks that her son, who turned bad when he found out who his father was, and because of his father having been killed, would understand that and come to the church to find it. And so she could intercept him, because, every time she tried to touch base with him when he's in and out of prison, he wanted nothing to do with her.
Yep.
So she'd been there for the last 3 years. But eventually he does get there to look for the money. He's confronted by Moon Knight. He shoots Moon Knight, and he's going to put him out. And unfortunately, Scarlet did have a gun, and she feels compelled to shoot Joe, her son, and kill him. And so it's crushing, heartbreaking. And in his death throes, he falls on the rope of the big church bell, and that inside the church bell, like probably held up by the clapper, is where the money was, and what had been hidden all along, and it falls out. Just a gut-wrenching issue, but just really well written, really well illustrated.
Yeah, agreed. When I was reading it, I was like, I really, what an untenable position for stained glass Scarlet there.
Yeah.
After all she's been through, and then she having to kill her own son.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the anguish that she's going through there. Monk did a really good job on that story, I have to admit. A plus on that one.
Yes.
All right.
Issue 15.
15 right here. Great
Frank Miller cover.
Another Frank Miller cover, yeah. They really did a good job on those covers for the most part. So in this story, it opens up with this Japanese minister being shot at from a distance, and obviously he's got police protection and so forth. And so this one detective, Gwen, I believe his name is, he starts leading the police into this doorway, but apparently whoever the sniper was somehow escaped, even though there's no other way of
no means of escape. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Flint calls in Moon Knight and says, "Hey, could you help us out with this? Because there's all kinds of crime going on here, but this is one that your particular skills are needed for." And he introduces them to Sergeant Gwynn, who has been on the force for many years and has got all kinds of accolades. So right there, your suspicions start propping up,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And so Moon Knight,
it is important to note, I think, right here, just one, is that Moon Knight's been having headaches a lot lately, and he's concerned about them.
That's right. Yeah, he's got a splitting headache, so he didn't even want to talk to the detective or anything. He just wanted to go home,
Right.
But he was like, okay, I can't say no to that. If people are this guy is going to be assassinated, I got to help out.
Right.
But all the while, another attempt was made, and the detective stated that it looked like Moon Knight.
Right. The potential assailant, yes.
A potential assailant, right. Yeah. So now the police are after Moon Knight. And Detective Flint keeps saying, well, I thought he was a good guy, but anybody can turn bad.
Right.
Important
yes, it is. Yes.
To remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're just, even though that he potentially he's the assailant, they're shooting at him. They're trying to kill Moon Knight. They're trying to kill Moon Knight. But while he's getting away from the police, this limb falls on this lady, but he saves the lady, and Detective Flint sees that. And he says, "Man, you wouldn't think a murderer would be doing that." And
right.
Maybe he did that, but that doesn't mean that he's innocent from the other crimes, right?
Right.
So again, he goes back to Lockley, talks to Crawley and Gina. and they seem to think that um that he's got these headaches and all this stuff, that he has to figure out, that he can't become Moon Knight and think that they're not going to go after him.
Right.
That's not a smart thing to do. And again, he goes back to, I'm not going to go with the whole Marlene thing with the headaches and thinking that he's got problems and so forth. So there's this other guy. Now, it doesn't look like Gwen, right? But he's buying these little doll clothes,
right?
And he's like, oh, these are for my little friends. And he's very polite. He says hi to everybody, and he goes to this room somewhere, and there's a bunch of rats and this like diorama thing.
Yeah.
And he's clothing them like army guys,
Right.
Really odd little thing there. And then Moon Knight's like, okay, let's go on patrol with Frenchie, and because the minister is going to appear at a speech, I think at the city hall or at a function or something, and they think that this guy's going to try to assassinate him, even though they think it's Moon Knight.
Right.
But while he's up there, he sees a guy in the rat mask and a cape, going toward the podium where the minister is talking. And he's got a gun. He's about to shoot him. He does shoot, but he misses. And Moon Knight comes behind him, trips him up. They get into a fight. And he tracks him down to that room, wherever it is. And he finds like right-wing manifesto stuff, Hitler and swastikas, things like that. Which is, again, Doug Monk. They're talking about, social issues at the time and political activism and all that stuff, right? While he's there, the guy sends the rats after him. He's attacked by rats, but he shrugs them off eventually. He has to like rip them off his actual self.
Because there's so many of them. Yeah.
There's so many of them. And finally he rips the mask off of, while he gets in a fight with the rat guy. He gets in a fight with him, and he says, "Oh, well, he thought it was Gwen, right? But he sees that it's not him, right? But under the mask, he has another mask, which is that bearded guy. Then he rips that off, and he finds out, it is indeed Gwen. That is the right-wing fascist guy who wants to
racist, xenophobic,
purify America, that kind of stuff, exactly. And they get into a fight back and forth. While he's about to stab, or no, with an axe, he's about to axe Moon Knight. The rat guy steps on a rat trap.
Yeah.
And that distracts him enough for Moon Knight to give him an old uppercut, and boom, he's out.
Good story. That could have been a great story.
Yeah.
I think the rat trap's a little much.
The rat trap was a little bit, a little bit.
And I think I think they were a little too. Made him a little too loopy. I think they could have been subtler with how he was and been more effective. But
it was a little out there. But I think sometimes they're trying to get the point across. They kind of lose a focus a little bit.
Right. Dennis Cowan art on this one cover. So a mob boss plans to blow up the East Coast communications grid centered in New York. And he hires the deadly blacksmith to prevent Moon Knight from interfering with his plans, right?
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll try to run through it so I can talk a little bit about this. But there's a cop who does not like superheroes, right? Especially because the son idolizes Moon Knight. And he's like, they're vigilantes. They work outside the law. You should be for law and order, like poor slobs like your father and his compatriots, essentially. Well, while working, he's investigating this case, and unfortunately he dies. His son turns to Moon Knight to help find the cop's killer. He doesn't believe he accidentally died. He believes, as ultimately Moon Knight will believe, that he was killed. Wasn't necessarily by accident. And this is kind of cool because this one guest stars the Thing, right?
Yeah. Small part. Yeah.
Exactly, a small part. The boy first reached out to the Thing, And he was being in a thing mood at the time, and Alicia told him I think he was being a jerk, but he helped get a communication to Moon Knight. So that was kind of the part he played.
Yeah, he did a radio.
But,
he was a radio
right.
guy. Yeah.
Yep. So, anyways, but what they were looking for was this giant nuclear device that was going to blow up the grid area. Moon Knight catches the people behind him, and the son, who catches up with him, he wants them to kill him. He's like, no, I can't kill them. That would be wrong. And that's real quick. Then there's a backup story, which is a flashback with Moon Knight talking about when he was hired as Mark Spector to steal the head of Medusa.
Head of Medusa, yeah,
by a wheelchair bound sculptor. The sculptor's daughter is always also trying to steal it simultaneously, and they run into each other on the job. And I think like the sculptor thinks that he can turn people into stone and sell them as statues.
And his daughter's trying to prevent that. So
prevent that from happening, right? And ultimately, he's the one, Karg, I think his name was, who's turned into stone by the Medusa head. So let me get back to the primary story. It felt so rushed. I don't understand why. It's like as soon as the boy's dad died, it's like he had no emotion. It's like, oh, okay, I want Moon Knight to get him, And I did not like the way that story felt like it was cobbled together. That there was no time to breathe for any of the proper emotions you would assume. Even if the father and the son were angry at one another, it didn't do it for me. I did not like that.
Yeah, I agree. That was by far the weakest story in this run.
Yeah.
Definitely fill in stuff.
Yeah,
for sure. Did not move the needle at all.
No.
In any direction. And like you said, felt rushed. It felt like they had the beginning and the end, and they just sort of cobbled together the middle.
Yeah.
And just no more need be said. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Issue 17.
Right. Now we're ending with the 4-issue story arc here, and this is the longest story arc of the whole
Dennis Cowan cover again.
Yep, and Cowan Jusko. And here he gets visited by this friend who's a ex-Mossad agent from Israel. So again, more relationships from that mercenary days, and he did more than that. He worked with the good guys as well, right?
Right.
And he's
Benjamin Abramoff.
Abramoff, that's right.
Yeah.
And he came to see him because there's this guy named Nimrod Strange.
Yeah, I love the first name. I don't care.
Nimrod. Yeah,
fantastic.
His mom really did him a favor with that one.
Yeah.
And he's putting together this terrorist army, essentially, of both right and left wingers who are nihilists. They want to destroy all world governments.
All governments. Yeah, the third world slayers.
Right, and everybody except the Israelis are thinking that this guy is laughable. He's just some kind of cultish leader,
Don't take him seriously.
Don't take him seriously. But this guy says, listen, this guy is the real deal. And if we don't stop him now, he is going to destroy all the countries of the world eventually. Because he keeps recruiting, terrorists and nihilists, all kinds of, less than more ill repute people than you really could fit into a room, right?
Yeah.
So he starts talking to him, and he's like, really, I don't want to take this. Again, he's going through a transition time here, where he doesn't really want to get too involved with mercenary stuff. He's trying to stay close to home, Marlene, and all that stuff. But while he's being told about Nimrod and how he has like these 3 beautiful bodyguards and this cult-like army, and this assassin called the Super Sniper. What is it called?
Yep.
Master
That's
Sniper.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
He is
Master Sniper. Yeah.
The Israeli guy is shot in the back by Master Sniper.
Yep.
And on his death throes, he says, below my ribs. They're 3 ribs down, And he was like, Moon Knight thinks, oh, he must be in terrible pain. But they find like a mole there. But Moon Knight, goes out to try to find the Master Sniper, while Marlene and Frenchie are trying to find out what the guy is talking about.
Right.
And Moon Knight does catch up to the sniper. And apparently he doesn't leave like any clues because he doesn't have a rifle. It's all built into a gauntlet on his arm, right?
Yep.
And they fight, but the Master Sniper hits him with the metal part and knocks him silly, and he uses that time to get away. He doesn't want to be, caught. He doesn't want to be identified.
Right.
During that time, Marlene finds out that what he's talking about was a microfiche that was on his body that has the information of where the island is that Nimrod has all this mercenary army at.
Right.
And it shows Nimrod and how tough he has his bodyguards go through these fighting rituals.
Right.
And there's one of them that he keeps thinking, you're too slow. And she is she has a African American, an Asian, and a Caucasian, and the Caucasian is too slow. Important for later on, okay?
It is.
Frenchie and Marlene figure out that there's gibberish there, so they have to figure out how to decipher it.
Right. This microdot is coded, and they don't know what it means. Yeah.
Right. It's coded. And the only lead they have is this guy. What was that? The Russian guy.
Striglov.
Striglov. Yeah, that guy. Right. And he finds out that that his friend, the Israeli guy, was killed. He thinks Spectre did it because he was a mercenary.
Right.
So he's out. He's going to kill Spectre until finally he convinces him after fighting that they're on the same side.
Right. And this is in Switzerland, by the way.
This is in Switzerland, right. And of course, at that point, the Master Sniper is trying to kill them all. He's trying to totally erase the tracks and trying to find out if they know about the whereabouts of the island.
Right.
So they fight. They go onto this the ski lift or the trolley thing, whatever. Moon Knight gets essentially slaughtered off of that, but he glides back down.
Yeah.
But again, the Master Sniper guy has his sights on Marlene and Frenchie, who are now skiing away from the lodge,
right,
trying to help him. But while he's got Marlene in his sights, Moon Knight attacks him, and he causes an avalanche because he fires into the snowbank, and apparently the Master Sniper is killed under the avalanche.
Right. Yep.
And at the end, they talk to the widow of Abramowitz, and she
Anna, yeah,
Hannah, right? And she says, "Could you please, bring him to justice?"
His work. Yeah.
And then there's a second story, which is kind of a silly story about a idol where he was in the past that he finds out, and he goes
through all these harrowing death-defying trials.
It's like an Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Yes, very much so.
And they're rats and all this stuff, and he finds out at the end that it's actually just
a worthless trinket. Yeah,
a worthless $3 trinket.
Yeah. That's the back of the story. All right.
I wasn't sure if I could mention that story, but it's in there. So
yeah, it is in there. Back to Sienkiewicz for the cover on 18. So you have 3 assassins from Nimrod Stranger. They're called the Slayers Elite, and they're after Moon Knight. Yeah, isn't that a great wraparound? They're after Moon Knight.
Say that they're in cover slingers.
That's true. In Jerusalem, they abduct Marlene and Anna Abramoff. And they wrote a message in red. It almost looks like blood on the wall to try to goad Moon Knight, into following and getting them. Moon Knight runs a gauntlet of attacks from them in his quest to rescue Marlene and Anna. Sumaro, who is one of them, he threatens to break Anna's neck. But with Anna's help, who Moon Knight didn't expect this from, he's able to throw Sumaro to his death. And
Yeah, tough old
Marlene,
lady.
yes,
Tough old
yes,
lady.
she is a
Yeah.
tough lady, tougher than I think he gave her credit
Yeah.
for. Marlene and Anna are safe. Stregloff, I think, yeah, he decoded the microdot message, and now he knows the location of the secret base. And the backup story I'm trying to run through the backup story is like the mini phase, the mini phases of Moon Knight. So it does go into a little bit more detail about the different characters and stuff, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, he dispatches the assassins with all alacrity, I would say.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, shoot. All right, 19. We're almost there, folks.
Yep. All right, we're getting there.
Here, another Bill Sienkiewicz cover. So they're trying to infiltrate to get to the island. They're trying to, the Nimrod recruits guys, and so he's recruiting them in this area, putting them in this truck to get them to a plane to fly them to the island. Right. So Frenchie, Marlene, and Mark Spector are acting like they're terrorists, nihilists.
Yes.
Ex-mercenary, whatever.
Right. Very similar to Ricky and Ray going undercover on the island. They do the same type of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And the way they're doing that is Moon Knight is coming in there while they're getting the guys in the truck to distract the guard so that Marlene and Frenchie can get in there. So he does that, and a bunch of the guards come after him, and he takes care of them, hides them in the back of the woods or whatever. And then while that's doing, he changes into like he's this like he pretends to be, I think, an Israeli as well.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, some civilian identity.
Some civilian identity, but you know, with he has like a resume, and he shows them in the whole bit. So he goes, okay, you can let them in the truck. Now remember, they're not on the list, okay? But these guys, they're not checking lists. They're just like, oh, they were here, so you know. Right. But the truck doesn't start at first. So they're like, oh man, if we're out, they're gonna make us walk to the plane. That the guard
the big thing is they noticed Marlene.
Yeah,
she would have to come out.
There were no women there, you know. So and she's, you know, anyway. But it does start finally. They're about to come out. It does start. You know, cliffhanger stuff.
Yeah.
So they're flown to the island, and all the while what's that guy's name again? The Russian guy, Stregloff. Yes, he's talking with his associates, and they're going to be stationed in a boat off the island. You know, off the island, right? Off the coast of the island,
training facility island. Yes,
right, correct. Yeah. So they land on the island, and they're met by Nimrod, and he's looking at the new recruits, and he notices Marlene, and he's like, hey, you know, I want you to join my army. So he pulls her out, and he says, you know, you need training and all that. He's like, I don't need training. So he pits her against one of his bodyguards, and Marlene, very capable hand-to-hand combatant, dispatches her, no problem. So now he's like, okay, you can, you know, because my Caucasian lady is slow and she's not holding up, you become the new bodyguard.
Right.
But the old bodyguard is very suspicious of her.
Yes,
you know,
and jealous and everything.
How convenient it was that she got to that position. So she starts being suspicious about, you know, her true identity. Mm-hmm. But now that Nimrod is now taking on a new costume called Arsenal. He's got grenades and the gauntlet.
Right. Something from his Slayer's Elite.
Yeah, from the Slayer's Elite, he's got all their same skills. Okay. Yeah. So he's a master assassin. He bombs. He throws the knives.
Acid knives, right.
Yeah, everything like that. And so while the Garrote, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Frenchie and Mark are in the barracks, and they're sneaking out. They got a plan to disrupt the whole operation, and perhaps even destroy the whole base, right?
Right. The
equipment, bombs on a plane. Yeah. But the problem is that Marlene is in quarters with Nimrod, and he's taken a liking to her, if you know what I mean. And Moon Knight sees them being intimate, and he's like, now I'm even doubly, I have double reason to get this guy, right?
Right.
And Stregloff is waiting on the boat. One of the guys wants to attack now, but he's like, no, you're waiting for a signal. The signal is the explosions.
Right.
So before Nimrod can have his way with Marlene, the explosions start going off. But at that point, the old bodyguard has figured out, that she looked through the records and said she was not on the list. She's about to tell Nimrod, but Marlene gets to the door first and knocks her silly. And she says, oh, it's just one of the guards trying to bother us. So the explosions take out most of the island and most of the army. Frenchie is just mowing them down because they took the pins out of the machine gun beforehand. So they had a chance. But Arsenal, which is stationed further away, survives the explosions. But Marlene comes with him to confront Moon Knight, and he throws a grenade and knocks out Moon Knight. And Marlene is concerned that maybe he's dead, but he moves. So she goes with Arsenal because she knows that she's the only contact now to his whereabouts.
Yep.
And that's where the story ends before the conclusion in number 20 right here.
All right. So Manhattan, did you say, or did you not? So Arsenal wants to set off bombs around every access point to Manhattan and essentially hold the island hostage. He captures, Moon Knight's going to stop him, right? With Stregloff, and Stregloff's in deep water because he's trusting Moon Knight. Everything rests on Moon Knight. And Moon Knight has an emotional connection too, right? Because of Marlene, and emotions don't belong in this sort of business, espionage, if you will, right?
Right.
But Arsenal captures Moon Knight during their tussle, and he kind of ties him up this wheel, and he unmasks him, and he can't believe it because Mark Spector and Moon Knight are his two biggest nemesis, and he finds out they're one person. He realizes that, and now the cover's blown, as the kids say. Marlene ends up fighting the other two bodyguards while Moon Knight battles Arsenal. As Moon Knight gets free, right? He's all tied up, but and he's taking his weapons away, but Arsenal doesn't know that the crescent darts aren't decoration on his belt, right? They're actually crescent darts, and he's able to pop one off, the last one he had, of course. Pop it off and use it to get through the rope. So he got himself free. And while she's battling the other two bodyguards, he battles Arsenal. He wins, but before the authorities can take in Arsenal, he kind of wakens up and the other barges. So what happens is these are oil tankers, right? And they let the oil out, and this gas builds up. And once the gas builds up, it's almost like a nuclear device, incendiary device. And they'll blow up the bridges and the access ways out of Manhattan. And then the fire, because of the oil being let out, will go from the water onto the piers, and it'll just go inward and kill everybody. So that's like the master plan if his demands aren't going to be met, which of course they aren't going to be met. It's like turn over the leadership of the whole country to him.
Yeah. And he knew that. He knows that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the other oil tankers are looking for a huge explosion from him, his oil tanker, to signal them to do it. So he does. So he's stopped, but he does end up blowing up the tanker, just not to that extent. And what all it does is essentially just blow up the ship that he's on and takes Moon Knight's compromised secret identity up in smoke with him, right?
Yeah, he was about to confess his identity.
Yep.
But then he's like, oh, it blew up because he had made a hole to let.
Well, he was about to. Yeah, he was about to tell it to Stregloff. pretty much knew.
You already pretty much knew.
Yeah, you already pretty much knew. It's about to reveal it, but didn't have to, I guess. And so because of that, they were able to capture the other oil tanker crews and prevent the plan from going through to fruition. And it ends a really poignant ending with Anna receiving the telegram from Mark Spector, who she knew him as Mark Spector, saying that her husband's work is now done. Yep. And that is it.
That's it, folks.
Wow. It only took us about 2.5 hours. What a good job we did.
I thought we'd be done in an hour and a half or so.
I did too. Yeah. But
you
know how you are when you keep blabbing along. There's nothing we can do about it. But
I can get diarrhea of the mouth real quick.
As can I, apparently.
So, but, all right. But, let's just give our overall impressions and then we'll get out of here.
Yep.
At first I was kind of weary because I have Monk at a very high regard, right? And especially after his Master Kung Fu and his Astonishing Tales work, which are some of my absolute favorite works, as you well know. Yep. And at first I was like, I don't know. That first one was kind of rushed. That second one was better, but it still didn't have the depth that I wanted to. But as the series grew, it grew on me.
Yeah.
With the exception of a couple issues that were a little bit bizarre, right? But when the stained glass starlet story hit, I was like, okay, now they're hitting on all cylinders here.
Yeah.
Really great story there. Finished up that story arc. Maybe that was a little strung out, that last 4-issue story arc.
Yeah, it was maybe an issue too long. Yeah,
an issue too long.
Yeah,
but not ridiculously good. So. I mean,
no, it's still good.
They could have compressed things a little bit, and it showed that, again, Moon Knight is an honorable man, no matter which identity he's under.
Right.
And that his friendships mean a lot to him. And you can see that with Joshua. When we talked about Joshua, we talked about Ben, we talked about Crawley and what he did for him and for Gina, and for, of course, Marlene, Frenchie, Samuels, and Netta, as well as now Ben's widow.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I think they're really building up a great background or supporting characters, and they're building up Moon Knight as much more than just an ex-mercenary, but a person who has maybe multiple levels to him. But whichever level it is you're talking about, each one has a moral compass that is at least when it comes to friendship, very, very, very tight and very, very, very strict.
Right.
He's not going to let somebody just die because he feels inconvenienced.
Right.
Right. He's willing to take those risks, especially when it comes to somebody like that who was assassinated, he came to for him to help. So overall, he grew along during the story. The background character or supporting characters were really flushed out. I give this a good B+ overall, as well as story and art.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I would agree with most of what you said. I think that it's too juvenile to think that people are black and white. They're multifaceted, right? There are people in your life, people in my life that we don't like, but they have friends who like them, right? So everybody has likable characteristics and maybe things that they don't like. There's no one who's just purely evil or purely good. It's a sliding scale, and I think you want to be on one side more than the other as much as possible. Sure. But I do like that they danced with that a little bit. I do like that they started exploring Marlene's resentment of Moon Knight's, what she thinks is becoming a psychosis, his inability to cope with the different personalities and things. And that kind of was weaving throughout along as well. It does feel like Doug Moench put some thought into everything early on and was planting some seeds that would come to fruition later on. So I do like the fact that you had at least the writer, and in most cases, the writer and the primary artist team up for most of this 20 issue run. I think that was important. And I think why it was so strong. I would put it at about a B. There were some parts I didn't like here and there, but for the most part, I just thought it was really strong. And I think a lot of the rest of the series is really strong too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just overall enjoyed it. Really enjoy the character. And I think I'm right in the B range with you.
Yeah. And you made a good point there that the writer and the artist, they had a long relationship with this character. So, it's again, when you've seen this series, right, where writers change 2-3 times in a couple of years, and then they have their own direction that they want.
Exactly.
Here they were flowing with the same current,
Yep.
And I really enjoyed the growth that I saw in their relationship here. Like I said, once they hit the mid-teens there, I thought it was really excellent. I would have given it a B because there are weak points that are really weak, and as far as those couple issues, they were really weak. But the strong ones were so strong, that it kind of overwhelmed them, in my opinion. And I kind of like those were like they were in the mix, but I kind of like excised them in a sense in my mind.
Right. Yeah. And I can't fault you for a B+. I think that's very reasonable.
And you're right. I think the multiple what distinguishes Moon Knight from a lot. I hear a lot of comparisons with Batman.
Yeah. I think that's a huge distinguishing factor.
Yeah, I think that there is the comparison falls apart when you consider how the modus operandi here.
Yeah.
Right. Batman is a detective, but he is mostly detective as Batman.
Right.
Moon Knight, all his personas have function here. They're not. There's not one that's sort of kicked to the curb.
Right. Yeah, I think they did a great job creating a unique feel to him. I get. I mean, you can do that with anybody, right? Oh, this guy flies and this guy flies. So I think that he's very distinguishable on his own, and I wouldn't certainly think that he's a Batman knockoff or clone.
Yeah, I never got a Batman vibe reading this series. Never got it.
Me either.
I really thought he had his own little, very unique way of dealing with crime, and he had weaknesses for sure. He has doubts, and there's a lot of ambiguous and perhaps vague notions here of is he somehow associated with a supernatural power?
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it all in his own mind?
Yep, and I like that too. Yeah, I agree. I didn't arrive in Batman's world and transition to Moon Knight's. I arrived immediately in Moon Knight's world, and so yeah, I think they did a good job, especially with issue 1, in building that up quickly and just packing in so much detail.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. So.
All right. Well, you pick this one. I get to pick the next one.
All right.
I'm not using the wheel. This is going to be a treat for you. In honor of our friendship, we're going to do the first 20 issues of Metal Man.
Oh, buddy.
So I figured you might enjoy this. I haven't read it, so I'm so looking forward to reading this.
Well, I mean, talk about the antithesis of Moon Knight series.
Right.
That's what you're holding in your hand right there.
So that will be our next one, the first 20 issues of the Metal Man series.
Beautiful. Love it. I mean, it's going to be a very different type of review show.
That's all right. We'll have fun with it, I bet.
But we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Absolutely. All right, my friend. Thank you, chat, for being here. Psychedelic and Crazy. I know you guys came in at the end. Thank you, Russ.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you for everybody. I know Ken was here for a long time. Bubs is in here with his barbs, of course.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve Jackson. Scotty was here for a while. Lead Pink, Greg, my buddy, is here. Tat came in for a bit.
Crazy
I know
Guy Comic Song too. Crazy.
Yeah, Crazy. Crazy and I go way back. He's a cool dude. Always. I know this is not like a very typical type of stream,
right?
But if you're comic nerds like Bill and I are, it's always a pleasure to share the depth and the goodness that these series have, regardless of what fan you are, of what character.
Right.
We take each one as sort of in its own little universe, and sometimes it's pretty good, and sometimes so.
Right, but we'll be honest about it. That's the
Yeah,
key.
we will. We'll give you the honest. We can't do anything else, buddy.
Yep.
We can't do anything else. So about 2-3 months, we'll be on Bill's channel and we'll review the Metal Men. Thank you, Bill, for that. That is a gift from you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. Good night. Be kind to each other. Be blessed. Be back. Sub Bill.